Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Caleb Perez Show. It is Thursday, February 5th at 11:54 p.m. The show begins now. So, I know yesterday that I posted on TikTok that I was going to talk about the NBA and some of the moves that happened in the NBA over the past couple of days. But then major news came out about hockey, as well as a story that I wanted to talk about. And trade deadline in the NBA isn't until today. So, I will make a trade deadline analysis video I think on Monday. I think tomorrow I'm gonna make my Super Bowl predictions since Super Bowl Sunday is this weekend. And then on Monday or I believe Monday, I'll have a video out about the NBA trade deadline. So be on the lookout for that. But today we're gonna go over the NHL and some of the major headlines in the National Hockey League right now, as the NHL officially goes into the Olympic freeze with the Olympic Games starting, I believe this weekend, which I'm really looking forward to. Hopefully, Team USA can finally bring home the gold medal in the Olympics for hockey, which I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, today's video we're gonna go over Artemi Panarin, and he got traded yesterday. We're gonna go over that. News about Gavin Mkenna and some legal matters he's involved in right now. How the Blue Jackets have been able to turn it around under Bowness so far, and what the NHL looks like as we officially enter the Olympic freeze. Yet again, Olympics start soon, so the NHL is on pause until the Olympic Games are over. But when they get back, it'll really be in the official crunch time in the NHL of let's get into the playoffs ASAP. But yeah, first piece of news, obviously, as I said, involves Artemi Panarin. Now, a few weeks ago, the general manager of the Rangers posted a letter to Rangers season ticket holders that the Rangers were going to be entering a retooling phase and that they need to prepare for the worst. And obviously, that was quickly followed by the Rangers announcing that Artemi Panarin, who was an impending free agent soon, would not be getting re signed, and that they were working with Artemi Panarin to find a trade to whatever destination he wanted to go to. Now, I say trade because as of yesterday, a trade has officially gone down. The New York Rangers have traded Artemi Panarin to the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for prospect Liam Greentree, a conditional third round pick for 2026, so this year's draft, and a conditional fourth round pick in 2028. Not long after Panarin was traded, he signed a 2-year extension with an $11 million AAV that goes through the 27-28 season. Now, Liam Greentree is a very decent prospect. I'm going to go over the trend first, but yeah, 2 conditional draft picks, third round, and a fourth round pick for a couple years later. Liam Greentree is a pretty decent prospect the Kings had, so obviously they had to give him up in the deal. Also, in the deal, the Rangers are retaining 50% of Panarin's salary, which puts him at a $5.8 million cap hit for the Kings' books this season. Obviously, Panarin is a free agent after this season. He needed extended. The Rangers said he wasn't going to be extended with New York, which is why Panarin ended up getting traded. Now, obviously, people are wondering why the Rangers didn't get more in exchange for Panarin, and it's simple. They told the guy they were going to trade him, and due to Panarin's no trade clause, I believe this was the only spot Panarin wanted to get traded to. Rangers really had no leverage in the deal. Liam Greentree is a very solid prospect who I'm expecting to make it in the NHL sometime over the next couple of seasons, so they were able to get that in return going their way, but simply put, the Rangers didn't really have a whole lot of leverage in this situation, so they had to trade their franchise player for quite substantially less than what they got for him, what Panarin's actually worth. But yeah, what does it mean for the other side? As of now, when you look at the Eastern Conference standings, the Rangers are the only team under 500. They've pretty much the only team who have basically said that they're giving up on the season. So they get younger with this deal, and they trade away Panarin, who I believe is 34 right now, and they get some solid prospects in return. And as far as the Kings go, my biggest argument against the Kings over the last couple of seasons that they lacked that one true superstar to get them over the hump. They've always had really good teams who are really competitive, but when you're constantly going up against the Oilers in the first round, you need your own superstar to try to counteract with theirs. The Kings never really had that. They have that now with Panarin, and they're going to have that for the next 2 years after this season, since they just signed him on a 2-year extension. So that's what's going either way with those two teams. Again, the details of the trade: Panarin to the Kings. Obviously, the Kings receive Artemi Panarin and extend him to a 2-year, $11 million AAV contract. The Rangers received a top higher prospect in Liam Greentree, a conditional third-round pick for 2026, so a third-round pick in this year's draft, and a conditional fourth-round pick for the 2028 draft. Let me see. Yeah, and again, Panarin and his agent have full control of the season as his contract carried a no movement clause, so the Rangers didn't really have any leverage in the deal. But Greentree was the best prospect in the Kings organization, so they got that going for him. And it's for the Kings. It's another weapon that they desperately needed, especially knowing this is Kopitar's last season, so they want to give Kopitar the push he deserves. Also, this is the next piece of big news. It involves Gavin Mkenna. So, Gavin Mkenna is the consensus number one pick of this year's draft. He looks like he could be a potential generational player. He's a very, very good hockey player, simply put. He and the Penn State Nittany Lions just played in their outdoor game at Beaver Stadium, over 60,000 strong, which is very impressive for a college hockey game. And it was a really cool game to watch, too. But he is now in legal trouble. It was reported yesterday that Gavin Mkenna has been charged with aggravated assault and other counts. According to Penn State's magisterial district court documents, the maximum penalty for first degree felony aggravated assault in Pennsylvania is 20 years in prison or a $25,000 fine. This involves an altercation that took place after Penn State's outdoor hockey game in which he punched a man and broke his nose, resulting in injuries that required surgery. Obviously, a broken nose. That's tough, but he struck a 21-year-old male. From what I've heard about the situation, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like the man was getting into his mom's face, so Mkenna responded by punching the man and breaking his nose, and many other facial injuries. So now Mkenna faces up to either 20 years in prison or a $25,000 fine. So yeah, this is definitely really bad. It's a really bad situation for everybody involved, especially Mkenna. He was supposed to be the number one overall pick in this coming draft, but looking over the situation, I honestly don't think it's going to result in that bad of a penalty. I think it'll lean more towards the fine without jail time, but it is still very dangerous that this kid who's supposed to be getting drafted in a few months is now involved in this kind of legal trouble. It's definitely not a good look for him. It's not a good look for Penn State either. That their number one that their biggest hockey star is in this kind of legal trouble after their biggest game of the season. I mean, this was a huge outdoor game at Beaver Stadium. 65,000 in attendance. It was a really big deal for Penn State. And this is happening afterwards. It's not a good look. Again, I don't think he's going to get charged for the jail time. I think it'll be the fine, but it's, again, bad situation. And hopefully it'll clear up soon. Let me just look over a news article for it real quick. Because that was just the ESPN post I looked at. So here's the article. I'm going to read over the article. It's not terribly long, but just so you can hear something. This is by Greg Wyshynski of ESPN that he posted yesterday. But Penn State forward Gavin Mkenna, the consensus first overall pick in this June's NHL draft, has been charged with felony aggravated assault and other counts, according to Pennsylvania magisterial district court documents. Mkenna, an 18-year-old native of Canada, was charged with first-degree felony aggravated assault, which is defined as attempt to cause serious bodily injury or causes injury with extreme indifference. Misdemeanor simple assault and two summary counts of disorderly conduct for harassment and engaging in a fight. Maximum penalty for first-degree felony aggravated assault in Pennsylvania is 20 years in prison and or a $25,000 fine. According to State College Police Department, McKenna's charges are the result of an altercation that occurred in State College at about 8:45 p.m. on January 31st. Police said Mkenna allegedly struck a 21-year-old male in the face, resulting in facial injuries that required surgery. Mkenna was arraigned on the charges and released on $20,000 bail. A preliminary hearing for the case is scheduled for February 11th in a Center County Courthouse in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. The alleged incident happens on the same day that an NCAA outdoor hockey game at Penn State's Beaver Stadium drew 74,575 fans. The Nittany Lions lost to Michigan State 5-4 in overtime. Mkenna had a goal and 2 assists. He has 32 points, 11 goals, 21 assists in 24 games with Penn State this season. NHL Center Scouting ranks Mkenna first among all North American skaters. The NHL told ESPN it is aware of the charges against Mkenna but offered no comment as he's not currently a player in the league. Penn State issued a statement saying it's aware of the charges. Quote, "We are aware of the charges have been filed. However, this is an ongoing legal matter. We will not have any further comment." End quote, the statement said. Mkenna stunned the hockey world last year by opting to leave Canada's junior hockey for Penn State's men hockey program in 2024. The NCAA ruled that Canadian juniors were now eligible to play on Division I teams, ending decade-old policy that made young athletes choose between the Canadian Hockey League and college hockey. Mkenna was one of the first Canadian junior players to make the jump to NCAA. His NIL money for Penn State is in the ballpark of $700,000, a source of ESPN at the time. So that's the news we have on Mkenna right now. This is an ongoing legal matter, so it might be a little bit before we get more news about it. I expect more news hopefully over the next few days, but as of now, Gavin Mkenna has been charged, and he is facing potentially up to 20 years in prison. Hopefully more details about the situation come out soon. But yeah, definitely a bad situation for both Penn State and Gavin Mkenna. Moving on. So, the last time I talked about hockey on this channel was when I discussed the Blue Jackets firing their head coach Dean Evason and hiring Rick Bowness as their replacement. Obviously, the Blue Jackets made the move because they felt this season could be a season they make the playoffs, and they wanted to make an aggressive move to get there. At the time, the Blue Jackets were last place in the Metro and the Eastern Conference, but despite that, they were still in the playoff race, but they needed to do something aggressive to really propel themselves back into contention for the playoffs. And they did that by firing Dean Evason, assistant coach Steve McCarthy, and bringing in Rick Bowness, who at the time was a very experienced veteran, a guy who had been known for turning around teams and getting them back into a competitive state. We saw that with Dallas, when he took the Stars to the playoffs in 2019, 20, and 21, the 2020 finals. And he turned around the culture in the Winnipeg Jets, turning them into the powerhouse we know them as today. Or at least what they were as last year and the year before that. Let's keep it simple here. The move worked. Under Bowness, the Blue Jackets are 10-1. They were once dead last in the Metro Division. They are now fourth, only 2 points behind the Islanders, who are in third, while also having played one less game than them. So they have a game in hand on the Islanders. While they're only 3 points behind Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh does have a game in hand on the Blue Jackets. 55 games played. The Columbus is 56. But yeah, Columbus is only 2 points out of third place in the Metro. In the wild card race, it's a bit further. They're 4 points behind the Bruins, who hold the last wild card spot. But obviously, they don't really have their eyes set on the Bruins. They have their eyes set on New York, the Islanders. And as of right now, Columbus, whose season was once on the brink under Dean Evason, has been fully revived under Rick Bowness, who may have saved their season, as Columbus is very close to making the playoffs and are in very good position as NHL enters the Olympic break. Now, obviously, I'm not terribly shocked. Bowness had turned around teams in the past. I had no doubt he was going to turn this team around as well. He had a reputation of doing it before, so I had a feeling this was going to happen. And I'm surprised the Blue Jackets were the first team to make an act like this. Especially seeing how competitive the Eastern Conference has been, in which the final wildcard spot to the last team over 500 in the East is only separated by 11 points. Seems like a lot. There's still a lot of games left in the NHL this season. So, plenty of times for teams to turn their season around if they simply make the right moves. Columbus made the right move at the right time, and for them, it's working out. They were under 500 at the time. They are now 29, 20, and 7 on the season with 65 points. Again, only 2 points behind the Islanders to have 67, and we're third place in the Metro. We'll also have an extra game in hand on them. 4 points behind the Bruins, who currently hold the last wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference. We'll also having a game in hand on the Bruins. But yeah, Bowness has bringing in Bowness has really resurrected the season for the Blue Jackets, and they're right back in the situation that they knew they would be this season. They're in a playoffs. They're almost in a playoff spot, and they're very close to getting there. Now, obviously, Olympic break comes at a bit of an inconvenient time for them. NHL is going to be on a big break while we watch the Winter Olympics in Milan, but the Blue Jackets, it's a lot of positive momentum going into the break, and something they continue to build off of. What they hope is continuing to build off of after the break ends. Those are the big pieces of news. I thought I might as well go over what the NHL looks like as a whole right now as we officially enter our Olympic break. But top three in the Metro are Carolina, Pittsburgh, and the Islanders. Top three in the Atlantic are the Lightning, the Canadiens, and the Red Wings. In the wild card spot, as of right now, there's only one team in the East that's really bowed out of the playoffs, and again, that is the Rangers. They said they were retooling. They traded Panarin. It does seem like the Rangers were the first team to officially say, we're not going to make it this year. We're going to retool a little bit and prepare for future seasons, but this season's not it. Outside of that, second to last in the East is the Devils. Ahead of them is the Flyers, the Senators, Florida, Washington, Toronto, the Blue Jackets, and then the two wildcard teams right now are the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins. What a turnaround's been for Buffalo, too. They started off terribly this season, and people thought they were going to firmly contend for Gavin Mkenna in the NHL draft. Now they're the first wildcard, so it's been a great turnaround for Buffalo. But yeah, that's what the East looks like. As far as the West, we have the best team in the NHL, obviously. Avalanche are winning the Central by a wide margin. They're the best team in the NHL. Central top three is Colorado in first, Minnesota in second, Dallas in third. Pacific is Vegas in first, Edmonton in second, Seattle back in a playoff spot in third. Our two teams currently in the wild card race in the wildcard spots in the West are the Utah Mammoth and Anaheim Ducks. The first three teams out are the Kings, Nashville, and San Jose. San Jose is 5 points out, Nashville 4, LA only 3, and I expect that to get a lot closer for the Kings with Artemi Panarin now in town. But obviously with the Kings, they're only 3 points out of the wildcard spot. They're also only 3 points out of third place in the Pacific. So they could really choose which way to look there, but they're only 3 points out of a playoff spot on either side. And obviously, outside of those three teams outside of the 5 teams really in the wildcard race in the West, it's a steep fall off. Chicago, Winnipeg, Calgary, St. Louis, and obviously Vancouver are many games under 500. Vancouver's been just dead. They're dead. St. Louis and Calgary have fallen apart. Winnipeg's fallen apart pretty hard. Chicago's still young. They have gotten better, but they're just not that competitive yet. It's been a great turnaround season for San Jose. Their young stars have really shined well. Nashville looking to hang on this era. Kings are on the outside looking in, but they are certainly in the best spot, especially with Artemi Panarin going to town now. Obviously, we're going to have to wait for a few weeks up to a month or so, before we see Panarin's first game with the Kings with the Olympic break. But yeah, the Ducks are in a playoff spot still, although they're not as strong as they were at the start of the season. And then Utah's looking to get their first playoff appearance in what would be a while. Their first is the Mammoth, their first in a while, dating back to when they were the Coyotes. Yeah, that's what the NHL looks like right now. Obviously, the clear leaders are those three teams in the Central Division. Colorado has 83 points, followed by Minnesota and Dallas. Minnesota at 78 and Dallas at 77. But yeah, the West is really top heavy. The Eastern Conference is really deep, with a lot of teams who still firmly believe they can make the playoffs outside of the Rangers, who have again stated they're not going to be competitive this season. But yeah, those are the big headlines of the NHL landscape. We are entering the Olympic break. One second. The first. God dang it. So the Olympic opening ceremonies are tomorrow at 8 p.m. local time, that is. 2 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, the opening ceremonies are tomorrow. We are officially in the Olympic break for the NHL. We'll be back soon. But what a big weekend for sports. The Olympics are opening this weekend. Super Bowl is on Sunday. We get closer to the NFL offseason too, which will be fun. And the NBA trade deadline is only in a few hours' time. So again, I will make a Super Bowl prediction video tomorrow. I will make my NBA trade deadline video on Monday. And obviously, I will try to present news at the Olympics as things go along. Until then, that's our news on hockey. Thank you for joining me this episode, and I will see you next time.